Expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of Game Week 23. That intro is becoming a little bit of a thing for me, isn't it? And yeah, sorry if it annoys you, but I'm going to stick with it, I think, for these videos. It's become a bit of a trademark. So what we've got here then is expected points data purely for goalkeepers with a focus on Game Week 23 in isolation. By the way, all of this expected points data is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. If you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub using the link in the description below, I get you 30% off and a free 30-day trial. So what better way to use? What better way to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, I should probably say, than my link in the description. So if you're interested, check it out, right? Enough adverts. Goalkeepers, top for expected points in Game Week 23 is Alisson. He's got Ipswich at home. Good fixture. I'd suggest there's a good chance for clean sheet there for Liverpool. Raya with Wolves away. Again, I'd say decent chance for clean sheet there. Martinez with West Ham. Kepa with Nottingham Forest. Interesting to see Kepa ahead of Sales for expected points. I would probably put Sales on this list, even though they've just conceded 2 goals to Southampton. I still think Nottingham Forest always have decent clean sheet odds. For Bruggen, Kinski, the obviously the well, I say backup, the new Spurs keeper. Although, will Spurs actually keep a clean sheet against Leicester? I'm not so sure. And Leno, they are your top keepers for 23. Now, it's all well and good talking about goalkeepers for one game week, but ultimately, I think if you're looking to buy players in FPL right now, you want to do so with 5 game weeks, or 3 to 5 game weeks at least ahead of time in mind, right? So what we've got here is the top goalkeepers for the next 5 weeks. Alisson and Pickford are your top 2, purely because obviously they play each other in Game Week 24 as part of a double game week. So that propels them to the top. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in buying either of these players. For me, I've got Sales in goal, and I'm just not sure it's worth a goalkeeper transfer to get ready for 24. I think for Alisson, there are better Liverpool players you could go for. You probably want to be tripled up, but I think a triple up not involving Alisson is probably the way to go. Pickford's decent, but I don't know. I just don't trust Everton, particularly under David Moyes. Under Sean Dyche, I thought they could maybe drag out some 0-0 draws or whatever. And I'm not saying they're worse under David Moyes. I'm just saying he's not going to be quite as defensive as Sean Dyche was, which obviously I guess means potentially more saves for Pickford, but I do think it means less clean sheets and probably less points for him now. So again, whilst he's got that double, I'm not 100% sure I would pick him. David Raya in 3rd place, Martinez, Flecken, Sanchez and Kepa. Those are your top for the next 5. Another omission in Sales here. I don't see Sales on this list from Fantasy Football Hub. I'm not saying I completely agree with all of these points all the time, and I don't think I do here. I would put Sales genuinely right now, even though, again, they've just conceded 2 goals to Southampton. I still believe he's one of the best keepers in the game. On to the defenders then, and with Liverpool playing Ipswich, they've got decent clean sheet odds, as you could probably imagine. So a lot of the starting Liverpool defenders appear towards the top of the list. We've got Trent, Virgil van Dijk and Konate amongst the top 4. We don't see a left back here. I think that's because the algorithm just doesn't know, and I don't know, to be honest. I don't think anyone knows who's going to start at left back for Liverpool going forward. You know, Robertson, Tsimikas, it's a bit of a toss-up as to who plays there. So I think the safe 3 being Trent, Virgil and Konate, you can see there on the list. Gabriel, I mean, he's always going to be up there for top expected points just with his sheer goal threat from set pieces. And even though Arsenal have not kept clean sheets recently, I still feel like they've got a clean sheet in them against Wolves. Estupinan's up there. Munoz, we'll talk about him in a second. And Howson of Bournemouth round off the top defenders. For the next 5 game weeks, it's no real surprise to see Liverpool players dominate the list. Trent, Virgil, Van Dijk, Konate and Robertson are up there. However, Robertson is a little bit less than all 3 of the others in terms of expected points. I think just down to his minutes. Probably not being as good as the other 3. And to be honest, I'm not sure I could fully back Robertson to play both games of the double. Speaking of playing both games of the double, with Connor Bradley being, you know, he's performing well whenever he plays for Liverpool, is there a chance that there could be some Trent rotation for that double game week? I believe the double is Everton and Bournemouth for Liverpool. So yeah, could we potentially see a rest for Trent? I don't know, just hypothesising there. Who else is there to talk about? Gabriel, despite not having a double, is up there. And we've got Timber and Munoz as well. And then in terms of the cheap defenders, so what we usually see when we look at the top defenders for the next 5 is the most expensive ones. And yeah, obviously they're going to be top for expected points. But what we've got here is some of the cheaper ones. So Munoz, Howson are the top two cheap defenders in the game, and I'd say I probably agree with this. Both teams playing reasonably well from a defensive point of view. And Munoz in particular just basically playing like a winger, super attacking, looking really good. And Howson, I think he offers a fair bit of goal threat from set pieces as well. And from Gameweek 25 onwards, the Bournemouth fixtures look really good. You can see Kirkez up there as well. Luca Dean, who I think will probably start at left back for Aston Villa going forward, just with how badly Maatson played in Gameweek 22. But you know, there's always a threat of some rotation there. Estupinian's up there. We spoke about him already. Ashley Young, who, well, pre his suspension and David Moyes being in, was scoring pretty consistently in FPL for Everton. So, yeah, could he be a decent option? Maybe. I would say of all of the Everton picks, he might well be the only one I'd actually go for. But I don't believe he actually played in Gameweek 22, so I'm not sure you can say that with full security. And Matty Cash, starting right back for Villa, is up there as well. Okay, in terms of midfielders then, well, Salah, no surprise to see him top of the list. Ipswich at home being his fixture. It's obviously one of the best fixtures you could possibly ask for. 9.5 expected points for him, nearly double any of the other midfielders in the game. Luis Diaz, interestingly, in second place. I think the algorithm backs him to play that game. I think he probably does, but there's always a little bit of doubt around all of the Liverpool attackers, I would say, outside of Salah. Kevin De Bruyne is up there. Palmer, Man City away being his fixture. You know, I would still say I'd probably put him a little bit higher than that in terms of expected points. I definitely don't think Man City away, from a goal scoring perspective, is a tough fixture at the moment. Foden's up there. Kulusevski and Anthony Gordon are your top mids for Gameweek 23. And then in terms of the next 5 game weeks, Salah is number 1. I mean, no real surprise. With that double game week in 24, it's just he's ridiculously far ahead of anyone else. Over 10 expected points ahead of Cole Palmer in second place. Again, I don't think there's any real surprise to see Palmer in second. Luis Diaz in third, the best of the other Liverpool midfielders. He probably does get the most minutes, but I'm not sure I would actually pick him. Certainly not ahead of the likes of Palmer. Maybe not even ahead of Mbeumo either. We see Ahmad up there. Obviously didn't go to plan against Brighton. Man United played really poorly in that game. You just don't know what you're going to get with Man United. And I think that's the problem for Ahmad, is the team around him, you just don't know how well they're going to play. Mbeumo, the fixtures turn a little bit better for Brentford going forward, so he could become an option again. Kevin De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes as well. I said Mbeumo could become an option again. I would say never really stopped being an option. It was just quite a lot of people sold him. And then just a view of the cheap midfielders. So what I've done here is set a filter of 7 million and below. We already saw Ahmad. He's genuinely just amongst the top midfielders overall in the game for the next 5. But other players of note, we've got Eze, Semenyo, Ismail Assar, Kulusevski, Trossard and Savinho of Man City are your top midfielders. Under 7 million according to Fantasy Football Hub. I would personally slip a few other names in here, namely Cliver. I think based on his performance against Newcastle, scoring 3 goals from open play against Newcastle at St James's Park is no mean feat. And he's on penalties for Bournemouth. I think I would personally maybe select him ahead of Semenyo at the moment. And then I'd also have Rodgers up there as well. So I'd say Ahmad, Semenyo, Cliver and probably Rodgers would be my 4 favourite cheap midfielders. Obviously Ismail Assar's up there for expected points, but I just think I prefer the players I mentioned. Forwards then, and it's a bit of a change for who is the top forward going into Game Week 23. Usually it's Erling Haaland, but we've got Alexander Isak taking the lead. And to be honest, with Southampton away being his fixture and Haaland having Chelsea, I don't think that would come as a massive surprise. Watkins West Ham is up there. Obviously Solanke's picked up his injury, so you can forget about him from this list. Gakpo, he is probably, outside of Salah, the best Liverpool option. And we'll talk about him when we look at the next 5 game weeks. But, you know, I would question still how many minutes he would get in that double. Mateta's looking pretty good. In João Pedro, he's probably a hold, even if, you know, you've been a bit disappointed by him recently. Because he's always going to pop up with the odd assist, goal or penalty, I think. Looking at the next 5 game weeks, Isak is top again. And I think that's primarily due to the fact that Haaland, well, Man City and Haaland's fixtures really change up over the next sort of 6 game weeks. He's got Chelsea, then he's got Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham and Nottingham Forest and Newcastle. At home. It's not at St James's Park. They've already played that fixture. But the fixtures do get really tough for Man City coming up. And I think if you haven't already, Game Week 23 onwards is probably the time to think about getting rid of Erling Haaland. Cody Gakpo's up there. He is, I would say, the best of the rest in terms of attacking players from Liverpool that aren't Mo Salah. But I still don't massively trust him to start both games of the double. I usually present the best cheap forwards in the game, but we see Wissa up there as one of the top forwards. Just 6.2 million for him. I think the Brentford fixtures start looking really good coming up. He could be a good option. Obviously, Solanke's injured. I would also put Chris Wood on this list as well. You know, he might not be putting up the underlying numbers, but the guy just keeps slotting the ball in the back of the net, doesn't he? He's an absolute legend, and I think you have to consider Chris Wood as one of the top forwards in the game. Moving on to clean sheet odds. Two teams sit at 50% according to 11ify. These might differ slightly from the expected points data from Fantasy Football Hub because it's a different algorithm behind them. So what we've got here is 11ify projections, and we just showed, you know, you might see some defenders with good expected points based on Fantasy Football Hub's algorithm. So the top teams for clean sheet odds in Game Week 23 are Arsenal and Liverpool, both sitting on 50%. Brighton on 39, Spurs on 37. The fixture's decent, but I'm not sure you could fully back them to keep a clean sheet. Bournemouth, Newcastle, and Aston Villa all above 31%. Usually I say any teams 30% or above to keep a clean sheet I would start defenders from. And I'd probably also, particularly Munoz, I'd include Crystal Palace there too. 28 is close enough to 30. And I think Munoz' attacking upside is worth the start. So yeah, that's a quick view of the clean sheet odds. I guess in terms of teams to target or worst teams, you got Chelsea, Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich. Really looking, well, Wolves and West Ham as well. Really looking like low clean sheet odds. So if you've got any defenders from these teams that you need to start, I'd feel a little bit nervous. And finally, well, who is the best captain? And I got to say, this week, I really don't think it's all that tough. With him just about to play Ipswich at home, I know he's blanked in 2 consecutive games, but I still think there's no question in my mind that Salah is the #1 captain. There is a second choice. I think Isak against Southampton away could be pretty good as well. But I just think Salah at Anfield against Ipswich, both FPL Review and Fantasy Football Hub have him over 9 expected points in that game. For FPL Review, he's nearly 3 higher than Isak. Fantasy Football Hub having nearly 2 higher. So for me, clear as day, Salah captain. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Quick counter through there, the top expected points for each player by position, some clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you think of some of those expected points totals. Any players that I've not mentioned or are not included in the algorithm there, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I was just thinking of what else to say. I think that's everything. If you haven't already enjoyed the video but haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to, just trying to point, the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there, right there. I'm going to wag my finger at it. And yeah, that should be everything. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you in my next video.